Hello, my wonderful friends out there. Tonight on Marriage Without Tears channel, we are looking at the issue of how to end marital abuse and violence in your marriage. If that has been the norm in your marriage, if that has been the way your marriage has been going for a long while now, when you listen to this very particular edition, you will know how to contend with it. You know how to cut it away, or cut it totally off from your marriage, because abuse and love does not work hand in hand. They don't coexist. As a matter of fact, if you have an abusive and violent behavior, you cannot profess love to an individual, no matter the kind of excuses you give to yourself. Because I have had people say, oh, when I come back from work, I'm so overstressed. I want to be left alone. And at that point in time, my wife is always on my head, and I find myself lashing out. I mean, you give yourself all manner of alibis where you are violent, why you are violent, with your spouse. But it's not the best, because no matter the reasons you give to yourself for being violent, there is always a way out other than violence. So I want you to listen to this very particular edition, really, because if you actually and truly love someone, you will restrict yourselves from reaching out or lashing out to that person in violent tantrums. Because you cannot be violent to yourself. If you love yourself, I have not seen a man beating himself, and I have not seen a woman also beating himself. So what you cannot do to yourself, you don't reach out and do it to others in the name of love. So the reality, know from the onset that violence and abuse and love, they don't work hand in hand. Please, it's very important that you know that from the beginning. It's an intentional understanding you must have in your heart from the beginning. So that's the first thing. The second thing really is, if you have been mired in marital abuse for a long while, and all your attempts to ameliorate the situation has fallen to the ground, all you need to do is to seek for counsel, seek for professional help, seek for a therapy. If you are the victim, that is, if you are the abused one, I want you to reach out for someone for support. Look for a therapist. Look for somebody who is, possibly an older couple that you can open up to. Look even on to people whom your spouse respects, somebody who you know that when that person speaks to your partner will listen. Look for that person and confide in that person what is going on. Some people may seek the attention of their pastors. If you discover that your husband or your wife listens attentively to your pastor, you may have to confide in him or her. So look for someone whom your husband or whom your wife confides in, and open up to that person. Seek for support. Seek for someone who will come in and lend a helping hand in ameliorating that situation. And if you are also the abuser, then you may also seek for counseling in terms of how to manage your emotions, how to manage anger, because some people are they don't know how to manage their emotions. Some people, whenever they are disturbed about an issue or stressed up, instead of choosing some clear-cut techniques on how to manage anger, they go to the beer parlor, or they soak themselves with alcohol, or they go into substance abuse. And before you realize what is happening, it becomes worse, because when you are under an influence, your judgment, like I said last week, is impaired, and you cannot handle those situations better. And you still go into violence, which you have been trying to avoid. So the only thing you need to do is look for a professional who can, look at what is happening in your life and be able to provide effectual solutions towards managing your anger. Very, very important. The third thing you must also do as a partner in a relationship where abuse and violence has become the norm is to begin to set boundaries and consequences for yourselves. Sit down together as a couple and set out boundaries. Things that when it happens, you will take the next option. You will know what to do immediately. I will give you an instance. You can set boundaries and say to yourself, anytime there is a violent altercation with my spouse, I would rather walk away. I will not be in the same room with him or her. I will walk away and sit back for some time and come back and see whether the tensions can come down. You can also say, if it becomes continual to the level whereby I can no longer handle it, I would rather have a separation from the marriage and seek for help both of us can seek for help. And if we're now satisfied that we can handle things better, then we can remarry. We can come back into that union and continue from where we stopped. I cannot be in a union where my safety is not guaranteed. These are boundaries you set for yourself. These are consequences you also let your spouse know, that if this kind of thing continues, you will not continue being in the marriage when your own safety is threatened. Because a marriage is such a place where, the couple involved must, afford to be vulnerable to one another. If you discover that in the place of vulnerability, that your spouse is taking you for granted and is beginning to undermine your own peace or your own freedom as a person, then you must know what to do immediately. You must resort to those boundaries you have set and decide either to walk away or to seek for help immediately. There must be something you must do. You don't sit back and allow marital abuse and violence to continue unchecked. That is what we are saying. So seek for boundaries, set boundaries for yourself, set consequences for yourself, and know that once this thing happens, this is what I ought to do immediately. So don't allow it to just go on like that unchecked. Otherwise, I have seen it cost lives. I have seen it cost all manner of, terrible things in the life of partners. I have seen marital abuse, derobe partners, do a lot of damage to the psyche or to the emotional well-being of partners. It ought not to be like that in your own marriage. Fourthly, as a couple in a relationship, you can intentionally develop quality communication. When you have effectual communication between both of you, when there is this intention to always listen to your spouse without interrupting him or her, listening and getting to fully understand their own viewpoint, their own perspective before responding, the capacity for violence and abuse is reduced dramatically. When you develop this attitude to pay attention, complete attention, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about partial attention. I'm not talking about doing a chore while serious discussions are going on between you and your spouse. I have seen that happen. A woman continues washing her clothes when the husband is actually saying something serious that she ought to listen. At the end of the day, she doesn't grasp exactly what is being said. I have also seen husbands, they are dressing up to go to somewhere. They don't want to listen to what their wives are saying. At the end of the day, that kind of neglect or taking that woman for granted can lead to something more terrible. So, you tell yourself from now henceforth, let me seek to understand my spouse before getting understood. You can check some of our videos on communication. I have a playlist on communication, and I have a video that deals entirely with the subject of communication. So you check that very particular playlist. You will learn a whole lot from there. Communication is very, very important in a marital relationship, and it is breakdown in communication that causes abuse. It is breakdown in communication that causes all manner of depravities, all manner of anger, all manner of tantrums, all manner of violence. When you fail to actually understand one another. Some people don't have the patience to actually understand, and at the end of the day, instead of using their head or using their heart to appreciate what is going on, what their spouse is saying, they start using their hands. They start using the wrong choice of words. They start using all manner of acerbic language, and at the end of the day, abuse and violence becomes the order of the day. So you may intentionally check how you communicate with one another, because at the root of it all may be the problem you have been facing. If you deal with communication issues, I can tell you that most of the things you are facing as an abuse, as violence, will suddenly just disappear. The fifth thing I have to tell you as a couple in a relationship that is marred by all manner of abuse, disrespect, and violence is to intentionally make up your mind that this marriage, we must build it on the foundation of mutual love, mutual respect, emotional intelligence. We must build this marriage on the foundation of harmony and peace. We must do whatever it takes to get our marriage working. Every quality marriage thrives on love, on mutual respect, on harmony, on peace. A marriage that is built on the foundation of love, mutual respect, trust, harmony, peace will always go the distance. And you can make up your mind right now to start rebuilding your marriage on those eternal foundations. It never fails. You can build that marriage in a way that every partner in the relationship feels heard. They feel heard, they feel supported, they feel appreciated. Because the reason why most of altercations, most violence are happening in homes is when a partner feels undermined, when she feels unheard, when she feels as if she's taken for granted, when the man feels a modicum of disrespect coming from the spouse, when he feels that, his own suggestions, his own perceptions are no longer valued, then a whole lot of, anger is built up. So you can make up your mind. You can make up your mind. How do you achieve respect? There is also an earlier video we did on respect, how to respect your husband. You can go there as a woman and check it. How to actually respect your spouse is very fundamental if you must build a marriage that is free from abuse and violence. It's very important. In building a marriage that is steeped in respect and all manner of joyfulness, you can start going for marriage counseling sessions or seek out a place where they are conducting marriage seminars. Let me tell you, you learn a whole lot when people who are unbiased, people who are objective, are able to tell you things they don't know about you, but they are able to tell you things that if you pick one or two things from there and you apply it in your marriage, you see results immediately. Nobody has monopoly over knowledge. A whole lot of us, especially the husbands out there, we feel we know so much. We know so much. We know our wives so much. We can always say, we can always do whatever we please to do. And she better appreciate our own perceptions. But that's not always the issue. That's not always the truth. The reality is that before you marry that woman, she has her own ideas about life. She has her own values. She has her own instincts. She has her own, visions about life. Now you have brought her under your care. You need to study her. You need to understand her deeper so that in communicating to her, certain tensions are relieved. Certain arguments are put aside. So these things are very, very important. These things are very. So you can learn that from a marriage seminar. You can learn that from a quality counselor. I always believe that a quality counselor who actually knows his onions can impart virtues into your life, into your marriage that you can't get anywhere else. But if you, by any reason, you cannot get across a quality marriage counselor, why don't you try as much as possible as laying hands on a book, a quality book that has to do with marriage, and then read it and internalize it and begin to apply it. The reality is that quality marriages, they don't fall from the sky. They come from people who have intentionally made up their mind to achieve harmony, to achieve trust, to achieve love, to achieve that kind of sacrifice that will take their marriage to the higher level. It can only be done when you have such intentions. As a couple, I also admonish you, I also encourage you to try some non-violent ways of resolving your conflicts. Many couples don't do that. When they see tensions brewing in their marriage, instead of stemming the tide of that tension by either walking away or being the silent partner, because only one person cannot quarrel. It's only when it takes two to tango. When you raise your voice and your partner sees that the anger has come in and he or she, sets down and decides to take it cool, before you know it, a kind of calmness will also come. So you can develop non-violent ways of resolving your conflicts. That through prayer, there are so many things you can do. I did a video also about how to resolve conflicts in marriage. Bringing out your arguments, your own side of argument when tempers are down. When there is calmness at certain hours of the day. It's not every time that whatever is paining you, you bring it out. No, 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 no. You can look at when your partner is at peace with you, when he or she has her emotions in order, and then you can, you can subtly bring out whatever your challenges are, and it will be better addressed. So seek for non-violent ways of resolving your conflicts, and the age or the tide of anger, the tide of abuse and violence will gradually go down, or possibly totally disappear from your marriage. As a couple in a relationship, you must also make up your mind never to give room for abusive behavior in your marriage. Anytime that you see that your husband or your wife is using the wrong choice of words in addressing issue, please subtly call his attention to that. Sometimes when we continue sweeping, wrongdoings under the carpet without attending to them, a time will come when what we are sweeping under the carpet will turn into a molehill. So anytime you discover that some certain things are being done the way you don't want it to be done, possibly your wife goes out and comes in anytime she likes, and you keep murmuring under your breath without addressing the matter immediately, you can call her attention and say, look, these are the consequences of what you are doing. I don't like it, but for your own good, these are the consequences, and it might spell doom for our union. You open up to him or her and let it be addressed immediately, instead of allowing it to seep inside of you. I said earlier, last week or a few days ago, that unresolved conflicts always lead to greater violence. It always leads to violence. So you can, instead of sweeping things under the table, you develop, a habit of, taking care of it. Immediately it happens, and gradually it will no longer be, it will no longer sit inside of your heart and be sitting until it becomes a volcano that is erupting. So that is one way also to address it. That's one way to address it. If you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so immediately. There's this red button by my side. Once you click on it, you get subscribed. You become part of this awesome channel. Finally, I want to let you know that abuse, violence, altercations, anger, I'm talking of anger that goes overboard in your marriage, it should not be tolerated. You can always reach out to your spouse and ensure that there is calmness in your marriage, that there is peace in your marriage. The same way it started, because I don't believe that it started before your marriage. Your marriage must have gone into a period of love affair, courtship, and all that. Eventually, you found yourself compatible enough, joyfully, going to the altar together and getting married. Now, something started it from somewhere, and then the anger continued erupting. It continued building up in your marriage until it has become a norm, until it developed into violence. I tell you that this thing can be curtailed. It can be curtailed. If you make up your mind to do some of the things I mentioned in this edition, that anger, that violence, that abuse can be curtailed. Verbal abuse should not also be tolerated in your life as a couple. Sometimes we say things that we ought not to say, and people begin to wonder, are these people actually married? What is going on somewhere? And at the end of the day, we come back to apologize. No, you shouldn't continue apologizing on the same issue. Rather, you should take proactive action and make sure that that thing that you're apologizing about is diminished totally from your vocabulary. Don't use esoteric words. Don't use abusive words to address your spouse, because you and your spouse, you are on a journey together, and this journey must be harmoniously built on sacrifice, on love, on commitment, and you don't address such a person with such nonchalant and terrible words. No, it should not be so. So also, as I end this very particular edition, I want you to make up your mind to be wholesomely committed to respecting one another. It's not just about the woman respecting the man. No, the woman also deserves respect. Every person in a relationship deserves respect. You deserve to honor one another. You deserve to respect one another. And when you respect and honor one another, there are things you don't say to one another. There are behaviors you don't do to one another. Like I said earlier, no man jumps upon his feet and starts slapping himself. If you cannot slap yourself, then why slap your spouse? You know, these are things you must tell yourself from the beginning, so that at the end of the day, you will build a marriage that will be the envy of your peers. You will build a marriage that your children will look up to and say of a truth, if daddy and mommy can do this, we can do this better, to the glory of God. I appreciate you for taking out time to listen to this edition, and I look forward to having you next week. But before you go, please look at this red button, get subscribed, and be part of this awesome channel. I love you very much. Have a wonderful week. Bye.